I didn't know lipstick could look like a declaration of war until I saw Elena apply it. She stood barefoot on the cream-colored rug we'd bought together in Portland 3 years ago, steady as a surgeon, dragging a deep crimson line across her mouth like she was underlining a threat. That rug had cost us 3 hours of debate in a small boutique on Hawthorne Boulevard. She'd wanted the expensive Persian one with intricate patterns. I'd suggested something practical, something that could handle wear. We'd compromised on cream, her choice of color, my choice of material. Now she stood on our compromise, preparing to break another one. Black dress, the one I'd watched her order online at 2 a.m. when she thought I was asleep. I'd been lying there in the dark, feeling the blue light from her phone wash across the ceiling like a beacon of everything wrong between us. She'd giggled at something, actually giggled, then quickly covered it with a cough when I shifted. The dress had arrived in an unmarked box 3 days later. She'd hidden it in the back of her closet like contraband. Heels sharp enough to puncture regret, the Louboutins she'd charged to our joint account without asking. $475. I'd seen the notification on my phone during a staff meeting at work, watched the number pop up while my colleague droned on about quarterly projections. I'd said nothing, just filed it away in the growing catalog of things we didn't discuss anymore. The perfume hit the room first, Chanel No. 5, expensive, aggressive, unforgettable. The same scent she'd worn on our wedding day, now repurposed as armor. I remembered how it had smelled that day, mixed with the scent of roses and champagne and hope. Now it just smelled like ammunition, like preparation, like the scent a soldier wears before battle. She checked her reflection from 3 different angles, adjusting the neckline, smoothing the fabric over her hips. The ritual was precise, practiced. This wasn't spontaneous. This was rehearsed. Saturday night arrived uninvited, swaggering through our bedroom in our Chicago brownstone like it paid rent. "Don't wait up," she said casually, her voice carrying that practiced lightness that had become her default tone. Which was funny, considering I hadn't been waited for in days. Weeks really, if I was being honest with myself. The last time she'd asked when I'd be home was... I couldn't remember. Couldn't remember the last time she'd saved me dinner, or texted to see if I'd eaten, or done any of the small things that marriages are supposedly built on. Those things had eroded so gradually I hadn't noticed until they were completely gone. Like watching a shoreline disappear under rising water. 3rd night in a row. 3rd girls' night out with Rebecca and Jess. Funny how the same 2 men, one with a silver Dodge Ram, the other with a motorcycle that cost more than our monthly mortgage, kept making guest appearances in that story. I'd seen the Instagram stories before she deleted them. Seen the reflections in her sunglasses, the backgrounds that didn't match her alibis. A bar in Logan Square, when she'd said they were going to a wine tasting in Oak Park. A rooftop in River North, when the story involved dinner in Evanston. The lies were getting sloppy. Or maybe she just didn't care anymore about keeping them tight. I'd started taking screenshots 2 weeks ago. Not because I planned to use them, what would I do, present evidence like we were in court, but because I needed proof that I wasn't crazy. That the distance I felt wasn't imaginary. That the marriage dying in front of me was real, and not just my paranoia. "Another late one?" I asked from the doorway, leaning against the frame with my arms crossed. My voice sounded normal. Conversational. Underneath it, my pulse hammered. This was it. The moment I'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. The moment I stopped pretending I didn't see what was right in front of me. She met my eyes through the mirror, her reflection framed by the Edison bulbs I'd installed last summer. I'd spent a whole Sunday running new wiring, measuring twice, burning my thumb on the soldering iron. She'd been on her phone the entire time, laughing at messages I wasn't allowed to see. When I'd finally finished and turned them on, she'd barely looked up. "Nice," she'd said. Just that. Nice. Calm. Calculating. The face of someone who'd rehearsed this moment. "It's just dancing, Marcus. Relax." Right. Just like the other nights. Just like the phone that died right on schedule, always conveniently at 11 p.m. when questions might get asked. Batteries must fear accountability the way vampires fear sunlight. She snapped the lipstick shut with finality, the metallic click somehow louder than it should have been. "I'm not asking permission," she said, turning to grab her clutch from the dresser. "Good," I said evenly, my voice quieter than the rush of blood in my ears. "Because you don't need it. Quiet carries more weight than yelling." I learned that too late, but not too late to use it. "You're not going," I added. She turned fully then, shoulders squaring, already loading the script she'd probably practiced in the car, in the shower, in all those moments when she thought I wasn't watching. "Excuse me? This isn't a college dorm room, Elena. You don't disappear till sunrise 3 nights straight and call it independence. We're married. Or at least we were pretending well enough to fool the neighbors." Her jaw tightened, that familiar muscle near her temple pulsing the way it did when someone challenged her narrative. "You're being controlling." "No," I said, pushing off from the doorframe. "I'm noticing patterns. I'm good at patterns. It's what I do for a living, remember? Data analysis. Numbers don't lie, even when people do." She folded her arms across her chest, the designer dress creasing in ways it probably wasn't meant to. "So now I need permission to exist? To have a life outside these 4 walls?" "You can exist anywhere you want," I replied, taking a single step forward. "Just decide where you live. Here, with vows and mortgage payments and someone who remembers your birthday. Or there, wherever there is this week. You don't get both anymore." The silence snapped sharp, brittle. She wasn't used to being blocked before the door slam, before the dramatic exit, before the 3-day absence followed by flowers and apologies, and the reset button she'd learned to press so well. "Fine," she said, sharp enough to draw blood. "I'll stay. Happy now?" I didn't answer. I walked to my side of the bed. When had we started having sides? Turned off my lamp, silenced my phone, and lay down fully clothed on top of the covers. "Seriously?" she scoffed, her voice climbing an octave. "You start this and just go to sleep? We're not done talking about this, Marcus." "It's late," I said to the ceiling, to the darkness, to the space where our marriage used to live. "Tomorrow matters more than tonight ever will." The bathroom light flicked on with unnecessary force. Fabric rustled with violent precision. Heels were exiled back into the closet, like disgraced weapons returned to the armory. She climbed into bed carefully, deliberately, like someone renting space they planned to leave the moment the lease expired. We lay there divided by inches that felt like miles, by years of accumulated silences, by all the things we'd stopped saying when saying them felt too dangerous. I fell asleep to resentment breathing beside me, her back turned, her body rigid with indignation. I woke to violence disguised as noise. Drawers slammed with percussive fury. Zippers screamed their metallic protests. The bathroom light flooded the room in unforgiving yellow that made everything look diseased, clinical, like a crime scene being processed. Elena moved fast, angry, methodical, throwing clothes into her matching Louis Vuitton suitcases like she was erasing evidence at a crime scene. The red sweater I'd bought her for Christmas. She'd opened it with that performative smile, the one that said thank you, while her eyes said, "You don't know me at all." I'd spent weeks trying to find the perfect gift, remembering how she'd admired a similar one in a shop window the previous winter. But by Christmas, her tastes had apparently changed. Everything about her had changed. The jeans she'd stolen from my closet. My favorite pair, the ones that finally felt broken in just right. She'd claimed them one weekend, rolled up the cuffs, declared them boyfriend jeans, and added them to her wardrobe. I'd let her take them. Let her take a lot of things, actually. Somewhere along the way, I'd stopped fighting for the small things, and then I'd stopped fighting for the big things too. The lingerie I'd never seen her wear. Black lace, red silk, things that still had tags attached. I felt something twist in my chest. Not jealousy, I was past that. Just a dull recognition of what those unworn items meant. They weren't for me. They'd never been for me. They were for after. For whatever came next in her carefully constructed exit strategy. You learn everything about someone by how they pack when they think they're leaving forever. She was taking the jewelry box I'd given her on our 5th anniversary. Taking the photo albums, all of them, even the ones from before we'd met, like she was erasing her past to rewrite it for someone new. Taking the good towels, the expensive ones we'd gotten as wedding gifts and only used for company. Taking half the books from the shelf, but not in any logical way, just grabbing them randomly, like she was filling space rather than choosing items that mattered. "Going somewhere?" I asked, my voice still rough with sleep. The bedside clock read 2:47 a.m. In the distance, a siren wailed. Chicago at night, restless and awake. She froze mid-reach into the dresser. Turned slowly, deliberately, like a dancer completing a move. Guilt, defiance, boredom, teenage rebellion wearing a 32-year-old woman's face. I'd seen this expression before, in photographs from her youth that her mother had shown me. The same look she'd had when she was caught sneaking out in high school. Some people never really grow up. They just get better at hiding who they've always been. "I didn't want to wake you," she said, which might have been the first honest thing she'd said in weeks. Her honesty felt like a gift I didn't want. Like receiving an apology from someone who's about to hurt you anyway. Courtesy expired around suitcase number 2. I counted them as I said it. 3 large pieces. 1 carry-on. A duffel bag. This wasn't a weekend trip. This wasn't, I need space to think. This was evacuation. This was exodus. This was someone who'd already mentally moved out weeks ago, finally making her body catch up with her mind. I didn't want to wake you, she said, which might have been the first honest thing she'd said in weeks. Courtesy expired around suitcase number 2. She zipped 1 bag hard enough to strain the stitching. Don't start, Marcus. Not now. Oh, I thought this was the dramatic midnight exit. Should I applaud? Maybe call the neighbors so they can witness the performance. This is why I'm leaving, she snapped, wheeling to face me fully. You don't take anything seriously anymore. You mock everything. You've become bitter. I take consequences very seriously, I said, sitting up slowly, deliberately. Probably should have taken them more seriously 3 months ago. She straightened, her speech clearly ready, workshopped, refined. I need space, Marcus. I need to figure out who I am without you hovering, without your judgment, without feeling like I'm suffocating in this house. Hovering, I repeated, tasting the word. Is that what we call asking where the $800 went last Tuesday? Controlling, she corrected, her voice rising. You're controlling. You track every penny like some kind of accountant. I am an accountant, Elena. And I call it math. I call it noticing when someone withdraws cash in amounts just below the threshold that would flag our account. I call it seeing hotel charges in Indianapolis when you said you were visiting your mother in Milwaukee. Her face went still. That told me everything. She grabbed her keys from the nightstand, then paused, her hand hovering. Give me the spare set too, she said quietly. I don't want to come back when you're here. There it was. The real truth, finally breaking through the performance. I retrieved them calmly from my drawer, where they'd sat and used since I'd quietly had the locks changed 2 days ago. But she didn't need to know that yet. I handed over both sets, the original and the spare, letting them jangle in my palm before dropping them into her open hand. You're right, I said, my voice steady. It's your life, your choices, your consequences. She stared, confused, her script suddenly useless. This wasn't the scene she'd rehearsed. No begging, no panic, no desperate negotiation or promises to change. I dropped the keys into her bag, letting them fall among the hastily packed clothes. When you walk out with those, I said, holding her gaze, you're choosing. Not me. You. Remember that when you tell the story later. She swallowed hard, her throat working. Fine. Drive safe. Roads are wet. That's it? That's all you have to say. What else do you want, Elena? A speech? Tears? Should I throw myself at your feet and beg you not to go to whatever hotel room he's rented this time? Her face went pale. I don't know what you... Save it, I said, turning off the lamp. Lock the door behind you. I'd like to sleep without worrying about who might wander in. Suitcase wheels protested against hardwood, then carpet, then tile. The house absorbed her footsteps, each one a countdown. The front door opened. The car started, her Lexus, the one I'd co-signed for because her credit wasn't quite good enough. Gravel spoke in that particular way that means goodbye. Then quiet, not heavy, not oppressive, just clean. Some nights are surgeries. You don't sleep through them. You lie awake and feel the phantom pain of what you're losing, even when you know it's saving your life. By morning, I'd made coffee and phone calls. Bank first. PNC Financial on Michigan Avenue. The representative, a woman named Dorothy, who sounded like she'd handled this conversation 1,000 times, was efficient and sympathetic. Access revoked. Accounts separated. The joint checking that had held our lives for 8 years split down the middle, clean as a scalpel. I took my half, left hers untouched. Fair was fair, even in divorce. It was shockingly fast once I stopped carrying someone who insisted she wasn't weight. Locks came next. Precision Lock and Key Service sent a technician named Carlos who took one look at my face and didn't ask questions. There's something sacred about replacing hardware. It feels like sealing a chapter, like installing a bookmark in a story you're finally ready to stop reading. At noon, my phone buzzed. My card isn't working. What did you do? I didn't reply. I was in a meeting with Jameson Analytics, pitching a new client on data integrity. The irony wasn't lost on me. Calls followed. 7 in the first hour. I answered the third, during my lunch break, standing in the parking lot with a sandwich I wasn't hungry for. You can't do this, she said, her voice tight with panic. I can, I replied, watching clouds move across the Chicago skyline. And I did. I never said this was permanent. I just needed space to think. Then you shouldn't have packed like you were emigrating. You took the photo albums, Elena. You don't take photo albums when you're planning to come back. Click. The quiet over the next days was unfamiliar and merciful. Meals tasted normal again. I could taste them at all, which was novel. The thermostat obeyed my commands without passive-aggressive adjustments in the night. No negotiations disguised as conversation. No wondering where she was or who she was with, because I finally, blissfully didn't care. Wednesday, she tried the old key. I heard it scraping in the lock, confused, betrayed by changed tumblers. Then knocking. Then shouting. You can't lock me out. This is my house too. I didn't lock you out. I said through the door, not opening it. You left. Keys don't work after you leave. You changed the locks. That's illegal. Check the deed, Elena. Check whose name is on the mortgage. Check who's been making payments for the last 8 years while someone else was making withdrawals. By Friday, her tone had softened, shifted, recalibrated. Marcus? I made a mistake. Can we talk? Really talk? You made a plan, I corrected through the door. You executed it. Congratulations. Saturday she tried guilt. Family. Lawyers. Drama. Her sister called, Andrea, who'd never liked me anyway, and screamed about cruelty and abandonment until I quietly hung up. Sunday morning, she stood on the porch again. I could see her through the peephole, looking smaller somehow, less polished. The war paint had faded. I'm ready to come home, she said to the door. That word doesn't belong to you anymore, I said calmly. You're being cruel. This isn't you. Where's the man I married? No, I said. I'm being final. And that man died somewhere around the third lie. I'm what's left. I thought you'd chase me. I thought you'd fight for us. Why would I chase someone running away? Why would I fight for someone who surrendered years ago? Because you loved me. I loved who I thought you were. Past tense matters in grammar and in marriage. She left without shouting this time. I watched through the blinds as she got into her car. Not alone, I noticed. He was waiting in the passenger seat. Tall, dark hair, expensive sunglasses. The one from the Instagram photos. At least she was consistent. That night, she texted, I hope you're happy. For the first time in years, I was beginning to understand what that word meant again. And I should have known she wouldn't come alone next time. The knock was organized. Multiple footsteps. A familiar authoritative voice that had judged me from the first moment we met. Marcus, her mother called through the door. We need to talk. This has gone far enough. I peeked through the blinds. Elena stood between her mother Patricia and sister Andrea, like a defendant flanked by counsel. An intervention team. A rescue operation. The cavalry arriving too late for a war that was already over. I sighed softly, set down my coffee, and opened the door exactly 3 inches. What is this? I asked. Patricia straightened to her full 5'3", trying to summon authority through sheer will and expensive perfume. This is an intervention, Marcus. You're clearly not thinking straight. Elena has told us everything. How you've been controlling, paranoid, refusing to communicate. Has she told you about Indianapolis? I interrupted quietly. About the hotel? About the cash withdrawals? About the man who's been paying for her drinks while I've been paying for her car? The silence was delicious. She said you were making things up, Andrea started, but her voice had lost its edge. I have bank statements, I said. Timestamps. Locations. I'm an analyst. Data is literally what I do. Elena's face had gone pale. Marcus, don't. Don't what? Tell the truth? You brought them here. You staged this production. I'm just providing context. Patricia's voice softened, shifted tactics. Marriages go through rough patches. You can work through this. Think of the years you've invested. I have, I said. 8 years. I've done the math on that investment too. The return has been negative for at least the last 2. You're going to throw away 8 years over a few mistakes? Elena asked, her voice breaking perfectly on cue. I'm not throwing anything away. I'm recognizing what's already gone. There's a difference. I looked at Elena directly for the first time since opening the door. But here's what I know that you don't. I know about Ryan. I've known about Ryan for 7 months. Since April, when you stopped bothering to delete your messages. Since he started calling you during dinner and you'd step outside to answer. Since you started working late on Thursdays, which was interesting because Ryan lives 30 minutes from your office and his roommate has Thursday night bowling league. She looked like I'd slapped her. I know about the weekend in Detroit, you said was a work conference. I know about the apartment he's been looking at, the one you sent him listings for. I know you've been planning this exit for months, just waiting for the right moment, the right story, the right way to make me the villain so you could leave without guilt. Patricia and Andrea were staring at Elena now. The only thing I didn't know, I continued, was whether you'd have the courage to actually leave, or whether you'd stay because staying was convenient. Because I pay the mortgage. Because I handle the bills. Because leaving would mean splitting assets and losing the lifestyle, and actually having to build something new instead of just fantasizing about it. That's not, Elena started. You stayed because it was easy, I said. You kept one foot in the marriage and one foot in whatever fantasy Ryan was selling. You wanted the security of a husband and the excitement of a lover. You wanted me to be the bad guy so you could finally leave without admitting you were the one who checked out first. The porch was silent except for a neighbor's wind chimes. So when you walked out with those suitcases? I continued. That wasn't you leaving. That was me finally letting you go. I made it easy because I was tired of being your safety net while you learned to fly with someone else. I stepped back from the door. We're done here. All of you. There's nothing left to intervene in. The patient is dead. Go plan the funeral somewhere else. I closed the door softly, locked it, and walked back to my coffee. Outside, I could hear murmuring. Accusations. Then car doors slamming. Then silence. Freedom doesn't always announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it slips in quietly, wearing socks, carrying a pie, and asking how you're doing without expecting a performance in return. Monday came without ceremony. No texts. No knocks. No accusations rattling the windows like ghosts demanding entry. Just morning light spilling across the kitchen floor like it belonged there, like it had been waiting years for permission to be beautiful again. I drank my coffee slowly, standing by the sink, realizing I hadn't checked my phone once. That alone felt revolutionary. Radical even. The simple act of existing without monitoring, without waiting for the next crisis, the next lie, the next demand. I went to work. I came home. I cooked actual meals instead of surviving on takeout eaten standing at the counter. I watched movies I wanted to watch. I played music she'd always complained about, jazz, which she'd said gave her headaches, though I suspected she just hated anything I enjoyed independently of her. The divorce papers arrived 2 weeks later in a plain manila envelope, thin and unimpressive for something that had once felt like the end of the world. Elena's signature was dramatic even on paper. Heavy ink, sharp angles, the handwriting of someone who still wanted the page to remember her. I signed beneath it, neat and small. No flourish. No speech. No dramatic pause. Just my name. Marcus James Chin. Subscribed and sworn. Done. At the courthouse, she tried one last time to catch my eye. I didn't avoid her. I just didn't lean into the moment. Closure doesn't require eye contact. The judge spoke, the gavel tapped, and 8 years collapsed into legal phrasing and filing fees. Finalized. Dissolved. Over. Case number 2024, DR 16847. Done. Outside, Elena lingered like she was waiting for a post-credit scene, a surprise twist, a moment of reconciliation or regret. I nodded once, polite, distant, the way you acknowledge a stranger who held the door, and walked to my car. In the rearview mirror, she stood very still, like someone who'd finally realized the audience had gone home, and the theater was dark and no amount of performance would bring them back. That night, I painted the spare bedroom. The one that had been her office, her space, her refuge from me. A soft gray. Neutral. Calm. The kind of color that doesn't argue with you, doesn't demand attention, just exists peacefully on the wall. Each stroke felt like reclaiming square footage from the past, like pushing back against the territory she'd occupied. I slept better than I had in years. Weeks passed. Life resized itself. I learned that happiness doesn't shout, it hums. It shows up as groceries bought without commentary, without someone criticizing the brand of pasta or the organic premium on vegetables. As music played without criticism, without headache complaints, without negotiation. As silence that doesn't feel like punishment, like warfare, like a test you're failing. I started going to the gym again. Fortitude Fitness on Clark Street. I'd stopped going years ago because Elena had complained about the time, the smell of my workout clothes, the way exercise made me too tired for evening plans. Now I went every morning, 6 a.m., and felt my body remember what strength was. I reconnected with friends. Thomas from college, who'd stopped calling after Elena made it clear she found him boring. David from work, who'd invited me to poker nights I'd always declined because Elena didn't like me staying out late. We met at the Hideaway, a bar in Wicker Park, and I remembered what laughter felt like when it wasn't performative. Elena never came back. Not really. There were rumors, of course. There always are. Thomas heard she and Ryan had moved in together, then moved out 3 months later. Andrea mentioned something about Elena moving back in with Patricia, which felt like poetic justice. But storms don't return to houses that stop opening their doors. And that's the thing no one tells you about endings. They're not loud. They're not cruel. They're not even dramatic. They're just the moment you realize you're done explaining yourself, done justifying your existence, done performing for an audience that stopped caring long before you stopped trying. I locked the door that night, not out of fear, not out of anger, but out of habit. A good habit. The habit of protecting peace once you've fought hard enough to find it. Then I turned off the light, sat down in the quiet, and let peace do what it does best. Stay. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.